I am a little bit obsessed with things that aren't. Now, they are, of course, but their job is to be a thing that kind of isn't. So let's tell a story of five things that aren't. Thing number one, John Doe. John Doe is a placeholder name. He's not a real person. Now, if John Doe did live somewhere, though, I think John Doe would live in a place called Null Island. Things that aren't. Number two, Null Island. Null Island is a way that databases hallucinate. So, when a database, a geographic information system, sees blank values for latitude and longitude, also known as null values for latitude and longitude, sometimes it thinks those blanks are actually the number zero. And it decides, oh, this thing is mapped to zero latitude and zero longitude. And that place has been given the name Null Island. So, John Doe lives on Null Island, and what does he do all day? Does he have a job? Maybe he's a writer, and he sits down, takes his pen in hand, and starts writing lorem ipsum dolor sit amet, and continues on with this string of garbled Latin. Things that aren't. Number three, the lorem ipsum. The lorem ipsum is a string of garbled Latin text, and it is used as placeholder text when formatting or checking fonts or checking the colors on a website, etc. It is not really a rule, it's just kind of a meme, a best practice, a common thing that people might recognize as, oh, if you see these words, ignore them. They don't mean anything. This is just placeholder. Now, the origin of that particular string of Latin is from the writings of Cicero, and it's a description of how people don't like suffering for its own sake. They seek it for some sort of virtue, yada, yada, yada. But again, the point is that it doesn't mean anything. So, John Doe is sitting at his desk on Null Island writing the lorem ipsum, and his cat walks by. And for whatever reason, John Doe on Null Island writing the lorem ipsum decides, you know what, I don't know how much my cat weighs. Maybe I'll weigh my cat. And so he tries to weigh his cat, but his cat won't sit on the scale. And so he goes, okay, I think I know what I'm going to do. I am going to thing that doesn't exist. Number four, tare weight. Tare weights are a weight that is set to zero on a scale. So John Doe, when he picks up his cat and weighs himself and his cat together, he writes down that number, and then he weighs just himself without the cat. And he subtracts his weight from the combined weight of him and his cat, and in that way, he is using himself as a tare weight. So John Doe, at his desk at Null Island, starts writing the lorem ipsum after weighing his cat and using himself as a tare weight, gets a call from his ex. John answers the phone, and his voice is very flat because John is employing the gray rock method. Things that aren't. Number five, the gray rock. So, the gray rock method is a name often used for the coping mechanism or defensive tactic of taking all of the interesting qualities out of yourself, out of your conversation, out of your presentation when dealing with somebody who is manipulative or abusive or looking for reasons to escalate things. Um, so John has that conversation. It's pretty short because he doesn't want it to string it out, and he hangs up the phone and he goes back to his desk. And he pets his cat, and he writes his garbled Latin, and he sits on his island that doesn't exist. And that is the story of five things that aren't.